Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Amazing Grace Rewind podcast, the podcast where we rewind back in time to watch the earliest seasons of The Amazing Grace for the first time. My name is Andrew.
And I'm Jill.
And we're here with Season 4, Episode 5 of the show, where we are down to the final eight teams.
Whoop, whoop.
Yeah, okay, so overall, I don't know, I feel like I kind of had an epiphany this episode, but Jill, what did you think overall, like, about the season?
Oh, okay. I definitely didn't have an epiphany. Okay. I would say, you know what? I liked the tasks. I think for once I can say that across well, maybe not for once, but definitely more so than all the other episodes this season. The tasks were all pretty bang on. Good tasks. Challenging, but not kind of in the recycled way of here's a height task or here's a, like, even the fast forward kind of had that height element, but in a fresh new way. But I don't know. You had an epiphany, so you obviously had a stronger reaction than me.
Yeah, so it's not really that I had a stronger reaction. It was just like, I was watching this and I was like, wow, these teams, even though there is conflict, these teams just seem so dull to me. That there seems to be no, like, spark. Well, they don't have the je ne sais quoi. Like, I don't know. I literally don't know what to say. There doesn't seem to be, like, the urgency or, like, the energy that other seasons have had with this cast.
To me, their only facet... The only facet for all of them is their dysfunctional relationships.
That's it. Because, like, otherwise, I don't think... And none of these people are endearing characters. I'm not rooting for anybody. I'm not rooting for anybody to leave. I just feel indifferent to most of these people.
And I know we spoke about this before, but this season is a lot of couples, and it's a lot of couples in this, like... You know, will this challenge our... To me, there's just too much of the same dynamic. Whereas you look at even the last two seasons... You come down to your final 8, at least, like, if we compare it directly to where we are. There's such, what's the word? Variety.
Yeah.
In the teams that are there. And that's, I get what you're saying. It's not here.
Yeah, and also with this particular group, it seems like there's no camaraderie within the teams. Like, we don't see the banter between, like we did last season, between, I don't know, Flo and Gerard. Like, we don't see any of that here. Or where they're all, like, on a train and, like, having fun together. That's not present.
Even there are small moments of camaraderie, but it's not consistent. You know, it's a team here or there. They make an alliance here or there. They help each other out here or there. There's no...
Yeah.
I mean, to me, the most consistency we have in that regard is whatever it is, Millie the Mole and the werewolf. Like, that kind of whole shtick.
Yeah, that's the only thing and Kelly and John, I think, were the only team that were really, like, giving it to us, like, entertainment-wise and fun-wise. I mean...
The clowns.
Okay, I disregard them.
Okay.
Tian and Jaree, they're giving it to us, but in a whole other way.
They're not trying. There's some issues.
There's genuinely some issues. They're really gonna go through it this episode, and we're gonna see them behave poorly. But you know what? It was entertaining to me. It was kind of fun at some points. It was just like little petty drama that was just like kind of fun to look at and laugh at and be like, oh, get her or something. I don't know.
But it kind of got exhausting after a while because the dynamic doesn't change.
No, the dynamic doesn't change.
And there's no improvements in it either.
No. But we'll get into them in a little bit. But we are starting with the waves crashing in on Marseille at Chateau des Alpes, and Tian and Jaree are the first team to depart because they took the fast forward last episode at 2:26 a.m.
Mm-hmm. And they are instructed to go to Amsterdam to the... Okay, I wanted to try and get this right, and I didn't write down the pronunciation. The Megaerbrug?
Sure, yeah. And they're going to find the famous Skinny Bridge. Yeah. So they're immediately having issues with navigating right off the bat, and we'll see this many more times this episode. Millie and Chuck, Clowns Alliance, depart. Millie has an opening confessional talking about pretty much just like her relationship with Chuck, and it's not really anything too interesting, I would say.
Yeah, and also Millie makes a point that she's traveled more than Chuck, which I think shows by leaps and bounds.
Yes.
But she's definitely also more of a character than he is in almost every regard.
Yeah, she's pretty much talking about how, like, she's done all these things, but, like, either Chuck doesn't believe it or, like, he doesn't, see that she has or something. I don't know. Monica and Cherie are thriving. They're leaving at 2:45 a.m. They're saying they don't yell at each other and they don't wish anything harmful on anybody. However, if Tian and Jaree weren't there, they'd be happy.
That's you know what? I'd say I'm about level with them. I agree. I like them as a team. I like how they're playing the game, and I agree with their opinions.
Yeah, okay. Riken and Chip, 2:54 a.m. David and Jeff depart, and they immediately go the wrong way. Kelly and John at 3 a.m. are departing, and Kelly says that she's the worst map reader in the world.
Well, at least she's self-aware.
Yeah. And we see this, she makes a little comment how she's kind of using this race as a litmus test for how the rest of their marriage will go, because they are engaged. So she's like, okay, if this goes well, then maybe our marriage will go well. If it goes poorly, then maybe our marriage will go poorly.
Okay, this is my personal opinion from someone who's never been married.
Yeah.
But should this not be something you consider in the dating phase and not in the engaged phase? Like, shouldn't the engagement come about because that kind of analysis went well in the dating phase?
I would assume so, that like by this point you're committed.
Like, she's just made so many comments about like, I need to start like seeing how like our marriage would go, or like if this is gonna work in the marriage. And I'm like, shouldn't that already kind of be kind of solid in your mind?
Yeah, it should be, but I guess I don't know how long they have known each other, et cetera, et cetera. But and the Amazing Race is such like a unique thing that people, like most couples, like wouldn't experience otherwise.
That's true.
So
the high pressure, the high stress.
Yeah, this is just like really fast tracking, like worst case scenario for their marriage and seeing how they cope with that. I don't know. Steve and Dave are departing at 4:19 a.m. and they are describing themselves as the tortoise. All teams arrive at the airport, and we get some airport drama.
It's a muster point again, which there's been so many of this season, but whatever, that's a talk for a different time. But yeah, they start lining up at, I believe it's the Air France counter. Yep. And obviously Tian and Jaree are there first because they had the fast forward last leg, so they were the first to depart. And it's Riken and Chip who kind of say that they're about fourth in line. After they've left, and they kind of say that, you know, something, I forget how they phrase, but basically like something about their intuition is telling them that there's only going to be enough room for like 2 or 3 teams on this flight. Yeah.
So they decide, okay, we are going to take matters into our own hands. We're going to be an active participant in our own lives, and we are going to go up to Tian and Jaree and ask them to buy tickets for us, even though the Riken and Chip are fourth in line. And Tian and Jaree are like, okay, sure.
Well, I think it's Tian they talk to, and she says, I'll talk to Jaree.
Right. Yeah, but they were considering. So Millie sees this interaction and confronts Tian and Jaree, Millie and Chuck being the team directly behind Tian and Jaree. And Tian and Jaree just say they haven't decided. But Millie and Chuck and John and Al, they say, that's enough. We are evacuating the premises, abort mission. We're going to a different counter.
Yeah.
They're not dealing with this.
Yes, and then so once the Air France gate does open, Tian and Jaree get up there, and sure enough, there is only enough spots for 4 teams. However, they don't end up buying tickets for Riken and Chip. Who's the other? I'm forgetting their names.
Yeah, okay, this was very confusing because all of a sudden Kelly and John are there.
Yeah, it was Kelly and John. And then is it John who looks at Riken and Chip and goes, "No cutting, or I'll punch your eye out."
Yeah, this was also so random. Tian and Jaree don't end up buying for Riken and Chip, and then somehow Kelly and John get on instead of Riken and Chip. But Riken and Chip say they're not worried because they said they can use their physicality to get ahead, which was kind of annoying to me. Just say, like, you didn't get this and you wish you did. Okay, yeah, that was kind of odd how that panned out. So Kelly and John, Tian and Jaree are on the first departing flight. Okay, David and Jeff, as well as Steve and Dave, are on a flight in their own little group, and they need to make a connection in Paris. So it's going to be a mad dash from one airport to another from them.
To be fair, most of the other teams also have to make a connection in Paris. However, the connection is within the Charles de Gaulle airport. Charles de Gaulle, I don't know. My French is pretty rough. But the issue with David and Jeff and Steve and Dave is their plane gets into Orly, but their connecting flight out is through Charles de Gaulle. So they have to go through the city to make their connection.
Yes. Yeah, so they have to do that, and then meanwhile, all the other teams are on a different plane. So, okay, David and Jeff, Steve and Dave, they get out, they arrive, and they're gonna go to their other airport, and they get stuck in traffic.
It's not looking good
for them. No, because it was very slim.
They have about an hour, I think, between their flights. Do they not? Something like that.
Yeah, they had an hour. And yeah, it was like half an hour away or something, or over more than.
I've had hour-long flights within the same, or connectors within the same airport. And that freaks. I was running across that airport just as is. And I had to go through I had to go through customs. So I can't imagine having to leave the airport, go to another airport with an hour to go. I would just accept we're not making it.
Well, you got to give it a try. They were giving it a try. So they got stuck in traffic, and we'll come back to them in a little bit and see what happens. But Kelly and John arrive in Amsterdam. Okay, and then the Kelly and John flight arrives in Amsterdam, and then we see the second flight arrive, and they physically put on the screen, second flight arrives 3 minutes after.
Yeah, it's like they really want us to know that Kelly and John aren't that far ahead.
Yeah, it's like, oh. They really have zero trust in the viewer to actually look at the times and be like, oh, that they departed, or they arrived very close together.
I appreciated that though. I really do appreciate that. But yeah, so on that first flight is Kelly and John, Tian and Jaree, and 3 minutes later it's Monica and Jaree, and then are the clowns on that one too?
Yeah.
The clowns, Amelia and Chuck.
Monica and Jaree. Is that it? Yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah, that's it.
Those three. Okay, so they all arrived pretty much at the exact same time, and Millie and Chuck. Okay, and this is when I felt a lot of the dullness of the team's energy, because when I'm expecting the teams to get off the train, I'm expecting there to be high energy. What are we gonna do? This, that, the other, and it felt like the music was carrying the excitement, and the teams were just very not laid back, I would say.
The only people who had urgency were Millie and Chuck, because they ran and dashed for a cab. Because they had talked to someone who had said that to get to the bridge, it's basically, I guess the train would kind of overshoot, so they would have to get off the train and then backtrack from that train station, whereas Millie and Chuck figure, go to the cab, it'll drop us off right there. So they're running to get a cab, and everyone else is kind of just looking and going, oh, they're getting a cab. Yeah,
and we'll take the train. How about that? It was very not exciting. But Millie and Chuck do arrive at the bridge first and reach the route marker there. And the task is they have to choose a boat and guide themselves to the Museum of Nautical History of Holland. I don't know what it's called. I have written this down. I don't think this is correct. Do you have what it's called, the museum?
I didn't. What is it? How's it pronounced, or how's it spelled though?
I don't know how it's spelled. I just wrote something down, but I wrote the Sheepwort Museum.
It's something very similar to that. You're not too far off. But it's the Nautical History Museum of Holland. And they have to navigate, and this isn't a roadblock or a detour or anything, it's just getting from one point to the other, navigating in these small, just regular tin boats, not tin boats, metal boats with a motor through the canal system. And you really saw in this little, not even task, just in this navigational process, just how dysfunctional some teams are, but also how directionally challenged some teams are in terms of maps.
Yeah, it seemed to be very hard for them to find where they were on the map and where they needed to go. I think teams were just kind of aimlessly going. I think the issue was that they couldn't find the starting point from where they were.
To me, the other issue, which again comes back to the dysfunctionality, but there were a couple teams, Kelly and John, Millie and Chuck, Tian and Jaree in particular, who one person was very adamant about going one way, the other person would not listen, and so they ended up going in, frankly, the wrong way for quite some time, and that really put them behind. And you just saw that here, just the kind of defiance of one person to listen and the other person just being,
So, Millie and Chuck were the first to arrive, but other teams arrived shortly after, and Millie and Chuck are frantic. They are kind of panicking a little bit here. Chuck is describing this in an interview, and in this, Millie is sitting beside him while he's like explaining what's going on, and she's like physically stressed, like rubbing her face, and you could tell she's just like not having a good time thinking about reliving this moment.
Oh yeah.
So that's happening, and we cut back to Paris through all of this stress, and we go to Steve and Dave and
David
what's the
and
other
Jeff.
team? Yeah. And Steve and Dave meander their way into the airport. It's gone.
Well, both of them missed their flight.
Yeah.
So, both teams. But you know what? They don't let it get them down. They reschedule, or they change to KLM Airlines, which has a flight going out not much long later.
Yeah.
Too much later.
Mm-hmm.
And so they use KLM Airlines to get into Amsterdam.
Yeah, and at this point I said, okay, it's officially over. The leg is over. One of these teams are out. But I was just glad that it was between two teams and not one at this point. Because if it was just like Steve and Dave who made this mistake, it would have been like, it would have been a gutsy granny situation from season 2 where they were behind by 3,000 hours. Okay, Millie.
Sorry, KLM is the Dutch airline. That's what I thought.
Yeah, I didn't know what that was. So we go back to this canal task, and this is where we get the confessional with Kelly and John talking about how they've nicknamed Millie and Chuck.
Which is so mean.
Yeah, they're having a great time in this confessional interview thing. Throughout this whole episode, you can just tell they were having fun with this. They were talking about, so their nicknames is Werewolf and Millie the Mole. So John came up with Millie the Mole because Millie has this ginormous mole on her face, according to him.
It's not that huge. Like, it's a regular mole. Like, it's not like there's anything abnormal about it.
No, and it's like, it doesn't like look like horrible either.
No.
And then Chuck is a werewolf because, according to Kelly, because his facial features looks like he's in like the second phase of becoming a werewolf, she says.
It's so specific, because here's the thing. Millie the Mole, okay, obvious, yeah, makes sense. But werewolf doesn't make sense. If you have to say, well, no, he looks like he's in the second phase of becoming a werewolf. Like, come on.
No, I think she means like where he's like, looks like he's like physically about to morph into a wolf at any moment.
But that's so dumb.
Well, maybe she's just like very passionate about werewolves. And it's just on her mind. It's like, okay, that guy could be a werewolf. She does call him attractive. She's like, he looks good, but he could like be a werewolf.
That's true. I don't know. I don't know. I've never looked at someone and thought they look like they're seconds away from transforming into a werewolf.
Yeah, but you know what? When she said that, I took a look. And I was like, she was kind of onto something there. She was. Just like the way his like cheekbones were.
I just think it's an odd observation to make about if I saw someone on the street, it's just not a thought that would pass through my head, you know?
You know, sometimes I do see people and I was like, that person really looks like a frog. Or like that person looks like a bird, you know? Do you ever think that? Or like equate people to animals?
No. The only one I know of that is in that vein is the this is an old one, but it's probably like circa 2017, 2018. Where like it was like the thing about Tom Holland looks like he always has a frog in his mouth, or like has like a frog mouth. Do you remember that?
No.
The frog had a name too. It was like Dave the Frog or something.
But yeah, I saw this person the other day and I was like, wow, you have such like pointy bird-like features. It's like, it looks like you could actually have a beak. I don't know.
Like,
I feel
in a mean way?
No, just like observation. Like they didn't look bad. It's just like you kind of remind me of a bird. Yeah, overall, this task is testing a lot of teams. And this is kind of the first time I think we see Millie and Chuck break down.
Yeah, no. Yeah, actually, I would agree with that.
Yeah, like communication-wise, they weren't like communicating. They just kind of say, they say, we can't do this. We have to do the fast forward.
Yeah, they're on the boat driving through these canals, and she goes, "Let's open the fast forward."
Yeah.
Which, do we want to talk about that now or later?
We can go because it does come a little bit later.
Okay, so whatever. We'll come back to that. However, in this task, John and Al are killing it.
They prevail and come out on top. And
the clowns, yes. There's no clowning around here.
Nope. They had found their clue, which has a detour, which is called 500 kilograms or 15 feet.
I actually liked this task because even though it was, kind of still that one is further away, blah, 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 but one is closer, they were just a lot more evenly weighted. So 500 kilograms involves, driving closer to where they are at the Nautical Museum. But they have to put on the traditional wooden clogs, like the Dutch wooden clogs, and carry 500 kilograms of cheese through this, like, it's not really a marked path. It's probably like 20, 30 meters onto a scale, and they have to complete the 500 kilograms of cheese to be carried. On the other hand, 15 feet, I think they have to drive further, like 12 miles, which also isn't that far. No. But it will take them to a farm where they have to search in a 15-foot pile of cow manure for clues.
Yeah, I thought that was really interesting. Not only is it pretty evenly weighted, I thought it was unique backyardigans. Like, I thought it was unique in that we haven't really seen dig through manure task. I mean, sure, we've had some where it's like, oh, you have to go through a thing of hay. But, like, manure is, like, adds a kind of a different level to it. It's like, are you willing to stick your hands in feces to complete this task? And the wooden clogs cheese one is also kind of fun. It's not overly entertaining, but it is a little bit more of an evolved task than things we've seen in the past.
Yeah, they're getting there.
Where they have to do things. They have to wear the little wooden clogs, which was a fun little detail to add in there. Overall, interesting detour. I think best we've seen so far this season, detour-wise. I was impressed. So, you know what?
I was too.
Kudos to whoever came up with this.
Okay, so with the detour, I feel like in my heart I know what you're saying you and I would end up doing, but I do want to hear your which one are we doing?
Okay, I'm actually torn because here's the thing. I don't know if I don't know if I'd want to deal with manure, and it's like, am I going to be able to properly cleanse myself after? Or am I just going to have to go through feeling disgusting for the rest of this leg?
Okay, but let's clarify. So they are given like a somewhat suit to cover their clothes and rubber boots. I think they're given gloves, aren't they?
No, they're not. That's part of the thing is they have to use their bare hands and bare arms.
This is what I was thinking. If you and I go in the race, we just need to pack a single pair of like you know the gloves that go up to your shoulder because you never know. But also, okay, Andrew, you and I grew up on farms. Okay, like manure is not a new concept.
Like, it's not.
I can't count how many times I've cleaned a barn.
Yeah, it's like it really is just more mind over matter. But it's like I don't want to carry that smell with me on the race. I already feel horrible. But I don't know. It's fine. I would do it, but I wouldn't be like overwhelmingly do it over the cheese task.
That's fair.
Yeah. What were you thinking? Did you see cheese and your eyes went like boop boop and said, I need to do cheese?
Well, not carrying cheese. Eating cheese is different than carrying cheese, Andrew.
Well, I thought anything cheese related, it was going to be...
Not physical activity regarding cheese. I think for me, though, this comes more from how we're doing in the race. Like, if we were really behind, we're doing manure. That's not a question. But if we had time to kill, yeah, let's go hang out with some cheese.
Yeah, also this manure task was a little bit disappointing in that it seemed like the clues were just kind of on the surface. Like, they just had to dig a little bit.
I think that was the thing. It's like, oh, they're going to be so grossed out by the manure. Like, I was expecting, arms deep in the pile.
Not at all.
Because it's a 15-foot pile.
Yeah, Tian and Jaree, when they get to this, they just, pretty much pluck it out and don't really have to do anything. Yeah,
so for that reason, too, I feel like the manure wouldn't be too bad.
No, but I mean, you wouldn't know that. Because when I hear this task being described, I'm thinking, I'm going to be up to my armpits.
That's fair.
Okay, so we see Kelly and John bond over their hatred for Millie and Chuck. This is, it really brought these two together. Because I think before Kelly and John were kind of at odds. But they really had fun making fun of Millie and Chuck.
Okay, but here's the thing. They also look like idiots because they're just following Millie and Chuck, who also don't know where they're going.
They're just following them and be like, ugh, they're idiots. They don't know where they're going. Meanwhile, they're actually following them the whole time.
They're not even reading the map.
Yeah.
So they turn around at one point and go back, and that's when Millie and Chuck decide to turn around, and everyone is having to reroute. Well, Millie and Chuck turn around as well because they go for the fast forward, which... Let's talk about that now, because we'll do it now. I liked this. I personally don't think I would be able to, or I could do it. I don't think I would enjoy it, but it was interesting.
Yeah, I think the pure ridiculosity of this task.
Ridiculousness?
It was so funny to me. It was so absurd. So what it was they were strapped on to the blade of a windmill and pretty much just spun around on a windmill for
Opposing
10 revolutions.
Yeah, so it's
Yeah.
like Millie gets up there, and then she's in like this metal thing, so she gets in upright, and then they flip her upside down. They do a half turn of the whole, or half rotation of the whole windmill, so she's at the top, like upright, looking all out while they load Chuck on. And then the two of them just go around and around and around on this. Like, it made me dizzy watching it, but at the same time, it's not like a heights task where I would be terrified for my life. It was just kind of like, oh, that's something we've never done before.
Yeah, I just think it looks so funny because when they're pretty much just like in these hospital gurneys, just like being spun around.
I know.
On a windmill. I was like, who came up with this?
I mean, kudos
This
to them.
is
It was a
curious.
funny task, but yeah.
Yeah, it was cool to see, I guess. But yeah, they do it, and they learn that they're going to go to the pit stop, which is Kasteel Muiderslot in the town of Mouden, which is an ancient castle. Castle.
Ancient castle.
Let's go back to the canals where we see Tian and Jaree going at it with each other.
They're so I don't know if it's just the way this episode was edited, but it just made them seem completely dysfunctional. You really highlighted that.
Yeah, they hate each other. It seems from this episode. They have there's communicating times 0. No communication at all. The only communication is them being angry at each other and snarking. Okay, so I have this conversation in quotes.
Oh, let's hear it.
Yeah, so one of them I think it's Jaree is holding the map. Or I don't know. I don't know who is who. But one of them says, I know more than you know, so I should have the map. Back off. You're making it seem like I don't. I think we should do this. Snatch. She snatches the map from her hand. The other one goes, wow, she's so amazing. You told me you can't read a map, and now all of a sudden you can. Snatch his map back again. Let me take it. Like whining and like mocking the other one. So yeah, they struggle immensely.
Yeah, I think you've summed it up there.
And it really is quite toxic, and not a great relationship to see. But it really is quite harmless.
And this is gonna continue through the rest of the episode.
Yeah.
So we get to the clowns have started their portion of the detour, which they chose to do the manure one, and they're having a ball of a time, throwing manure at each other, all that. Cut back to Kelly and John, who have somehow completed this canal thing. And when they're reading the option, I have this in quotes because it was just so funny the way Kelly said it. They're reading the options, and I guess John is like, "Oh, let's do the manure one," and she goes, "Poo, you poo," sounding like a Dr. Seuss book.
Yeah, John says, "Let's do poo." They were having fun this episode. They were having fun.
They had a bit of a redemption arc, I will say, yeah.
The highlights, or like the most prominent people this episode, were definitely them and Tian and Jaree.
Yes.
Okay, Riken and Chip decide to do the cheese detour. John and Al, let's just go back to them throwing the manure at each other and like fighting. This was so unamusing to me and juvenile. I was tremendously unimpressed by this.
Really?
I didn't enjoy it at all. I mean, they had fun, but I didn't. I didn't like it.
Okay, well, we differ there. What else? Oh, yeah, so when Riken and Chip and this is a common theme, because Riken and Chip and one other team do the cheese thing, and the locals are having the time of their life watching this. They're cheering them on, they're laughing.
Yeah, okay, this is bizarre. This might be like the first time they've done this, where it seems like the producers have like actually set up a barricade for the locals to watch them do the task. Because before I think there's just been like onlookers, but I don't think there's been like a physical barricade.
No, and people
separating
are
the locals in the task,
standing watching. They're actually stood there watching and enjoying this. Like these Americans carrying cheese around in clogs.
And did you see there was a woman in the crowd with like a full film camera, like filming them, like not a part of production, just like her own personal like camera.
But it would be like for them, it's like this American TV show is just filming these two people carrying cheese.
Yeah.
Anyway, Monica and Jaree end up at the manure detour, and after John and Al have finished, but Kelly and John get there first, then Monica and Jaree. But after John and Al finish, they are instructed to go to did we say, So they have to go to the smoker statue in... I'm not going to try and pronounce.
I don't know where this is. So they finish it and they have to go to this fishing town, a fishing village of Manakadon, I have it, or something like that, and find a route marker there. Okay, but let's go back to... So we have, at this point, Tian and Jaree are still on the canals, and Steve and Dave have pretty much caught up to them.
Yes, that's true.
As well as David and Jeff. So the editors do like a little fun thing here, I guess, where Steve and Dave are on their boats saying, oh, it's a beautiful day, gorgeous. Immediately cut to Tian and Jaree, it's freezing. Amsterdam sucks.
She goes, what's funny is one goes, I hate Amsterdam. And the other kind of takes a moment, turns around and goes, I like Amsterdam.
Yeah, of course, just because they have to...
They have to argue.
Okay, Millie is crying in the car, saying that they've been having huge compatibility issues, her and Chuck, and have felt like they've been having a rough leg.
They have, and I think maybe it's because I haven't paid that much attention to them before, but you really, like, Millie is the engine driving that team.
No, yeah, she really is. Yeah, so we see them kind of breaking down a little bit more. Okay, Tian says her hands are frozen, so maybe the manure will warm them up. So they decide to do that.
The two of them, they're just kind of whiny and complainers.
Yeah, but I do find them a little bit more entertaining.
Like, they're entertaining, but they're annoying.
Yeah. And I like when they go back and forth, because it does feel like pretty harmless. Like, I don't think there's any stakes in their relationship.
No, that's the thing.
Okay, when Riken and Chip, just going back to them doing the cheeseburger block, when they're doing this, there's this kind of like tuba, like pa pa music behind them. Did you notice this?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was. I really enjoyed that with like this kind of like marimba or something over top, and you can hear like the clicking and clacking of those like stiff wooden clogs. I thought that was fun editing wise. Kelly finds the clue, and John says in his interview, "quote I was like holy poo."
He actually stops him. It's not that they bleep him. He actually stops himself going shh, and then says poo.
Poo, yeah. And that was Comedy of the Century. Get him a Netflix special ASAP. Okay, so should we go to the roadblock now?
Okay. I feel obliged to talk about this. So,
okay.
John and Al get to this fishing town. And the thing is, too, when I heard smoker statue, maybe it's because I've seen statues before. No, but I've seen statues before of, like, when I hear smoker, I think of, like, pipe or, like, smoking. And I've been in a town near where we're from where they have this statue of a giant pipe. I don't know why, but that is what I was picturing in my head when I heard the word smoker statue. But when we get there, I'm obviously like, oh, smoking, like smoked meat, like a meat smoker. So the roadblock. So they get to this smoker statue, which is obviously smoked meat. And the roadblock clue is which of you has a firm grip and likes seafood. Mm-hmm. And thank goodness, I would say no to this prompt, because the task at hand, literally at hand, is in these fishing boats, because it's a fishing town. There's this, it's just a tub, not even a tub, because you can like fully stand in it, and the floor is just covered in eels. Mm-hmm. And you have to use your bare hands to catch 25 live eels and transfer them into a tub. So, like, this isn't a conversation. This isn't a question. I would rather do a bungee jump than this. You are doing this.
Yeah. So the thing is, it's not even, they don't really have to catch them. Like, there's just a giant area just like completely saturated with eels, like thousands of eels in the forest quarters.
I couldn't watch it. Like, I actually couldn't watch.
Yeah, it's like the only part that's kind of challenging is like, okay, the eel's like a little bit slippery in the mud. Squirm out of your hands and slip slime out of your grip. But it really is shooting fish in a barrel. Like you're not catching; you're just grabbing them from a pile, essentially.
Ugh, still, no, absolutely not.
So that's that roadblock. It was kind of cool, I suppose, but really not that much to dig into with the 25 live slippery slimy eels.
Yeah, either way, if that was us, you are doing it. Like,
right.
Over my grave.
Over your grave. Okay, so we go over to Millie and Chuck, who arrive to the pit stop after completing their fast forward, and they win a 7-night cruise vacation on Royal Caribbean Cruise Line that they can enjoy after the race.
And Millie is very happy.
Yep. But Phil... Phil gets his journalist boots on and asks them how their relationship is, which is good to see. Phil having this evolution, absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah. And Millie says, you know what, honestly, not great. I don't think Chuck trusts me.
You know what? Good for the honesty.
Yep. The clowns finish the eel roadblock, and then we go to Monica and Jaree, who have completed the manure detour, and they are going to be getting their car, and they're going to drive on off.
But okay, they didn't even elaborate on it. They just said that their car isn't going into reverse. So in order to turn around, they have to fully drive in a circle. But so they drive down this little gravel road that's off to the side and try to and it's all fairly flat. So they start driving on the grass to try and circle around and go back the way they came. They're hardly off the road. And obviously it was like a ditch that has water, or it's like a little more bogged down, and the car is stuck and they can't put it in reverse.
Yeah, it just looks so funny. The way they just calmly and casually just veer off to the side and just drive, and they're like, oh, we can't move anymore, and just drive onto the grass to their demise.
Quite literally 50 feet from the detour task they just completed.
It was so hilarious. And then they're stepping on the gas. They're like, the wheels are spinning. I don't know why it isn't moving. But it was a funny moment. I thought, oh, what are they going to do? But a truck does come not too shortly after, it seems, and has a tow rope and pulls them out.
Yes. So they didn't really give a gauge for how much time that was in terms of the episode, but it doesn't put them too far behind. They're doing fairly well.
We go to Kelly and John, who arrive at the roadblock, and John says he's going to do it. I guess Kelly doesn't care anymore about her whole needing to contribute to the team thing. And he does it. Okay, John and Al, we see them arrive at the pit stop in second place. And then we get a little bit more drama here with Tian and Jaree navigating in the car.
And at this point, it's kind of been put down to Steve and Dave or Tian and Jaree. David and Jeff, it seems like, are kind of going to recover themselves. Mm-hmm. And it's just Tian and Jaree, I don't understand. I forget if it was this conversation or a later one, where they're just, I couldn't understand what's going on. The person who's driving is, doesn't know where she's going, and she needs the map read, but the one in the back is literally just sitting with her arms crossed. She's not helping. Yeah,
she's pretty despondent. She's kind of refusing. I think it's Jaree in the back, and Tian is the one who's driving. And I think Jaree was the one who's quote-unquote good with maps, but she wasn't helping Tian navigate. So Tian was trying to read the map while driving at the same time, is what I picked up from this.
Oh, yeah, and Tian just makes the point of, she's sabotaging the team. She doesn't care, which is so fair.
Yeah, okay, so there's more map snatching out of their hands. I have some quotes here. You are deliberately trying to make us lose. Oh, shut up. You're going to get your face punched in, believe me. I'm sure everybody else found it with ease because they have partners that help them.
It's so bad.
Yeah, Tian is particularly sharp with her words. She's really going in. She says, "I could rip your head off right now. You're so evil. I want to hurt you right now."
It's
wow.
They get to the manure detour, and what's funny is they're not even talking to each other, and one of them is just are we allowed to throw it at our partners? Ha ha ha. But you can tell she really wants to. What's so funny because if you cut to the clowns who are just with good fun throwing it at each other.
Yeah, but this is real. So yeah, because Jaree is oh, I don't know why you're being so mean to me. I would never say I threatened to hurt you, or I wouldn't want to hurt you. And then Tian goes, I want to hurt you right now. Okay. So you know what, Tian, she's the kind of villain we need.
Yeah.
So yeah, this was all on the way to the manure task. And they, like we said earlier, they just kind of pluck the clue from the top, barely have to do anything. And then, okay, we see Reichen and Chip in fourth, Monica and Jaree in fifth. Their whole car disaster was not too disastrous, apparently. And we see at this point, David and Jeff have passed Tian and Jaree, which was quite miraculous.
No, it wasn't. Not with the way Tian and Jaree have been operating.
No, I mean, given the fact that with their whole flight thing.
Yeah, that's true.
I think Jaree has a confessional where she says she thought she didn't want to be eliminated, but she thought, screw it. She doesn't really care anymore.
And at this point, I am hoping that they're going to be eliminated. Because it's like, if you don't even want to be there, then don't be there.
Yeah, and then we go to Steve and Dave, who are hopeful. And who's it going to be? Who's it going to be? Who's going to be eliminated?
Ugh.
Alas, Tian and Jaree mosey on down the walkway and are in 7th, living.
They're not even happy to be told
day.
that. They wanted to be out, or one of them did.
Yeah, they seemed almost disappointed.
Yeah, this is what I mean. They're done, and I hope they're out next week.
Yeah, they probably will be. So yeah, Jaree says she doesn't know where it's going to go. And you know what? I'm actually fine with this because whether they're going to be insufferable or not, they're going to provide entertainment next week. Because I really don't know where it is going to go.
This is true. So we just have to sit tight and see where it ends up.
And we see the last of Steve and Dave here.
They get a nice little confessional.
Yeah. So we see. So they're approaching the mat, and one of them says, like, does a little jog, and he says, "Oh, I ran for the first time."
Like, they still just have such a good spirit and good humor about them.
Yeah. Also, I don't know if we talked about this, but they decided to do the cheese task, which was not a great decision for them, given their knees and the type of footwear they were using with the lack of orthopedic support.
But do you think they would, like, in the manure, teams were getting stuck. So I feel like it was a decent decision for them.
But yeah, I mean, carrying a giant thing of, like, cheese is probably not great, but they're eliminated and they're over. He says, I'm keeping the cheese. And Phil loved this.
Phil thinks they're hilarious.
Phil had a good laugh at them. Or with them, I suppose.
Yeah, and with that is season 4, episode 5.
Yeah, Steve and Dave leave us with the quote, "We did all right for a couple of old farts." Yeah, I feel like 90% of them speaking was just them being self-deprecating.
But in a humor, like, you know, not in like in a good-hearted way.
Yeah, and like they were making fun of themselves, not in the like, we hate ourselves, we are incompetent at everything. Yeah. And I said, you know what? I'm kind of bored with this episode. Like, I don't think that I thought the tasks were interesting. I thought the leg design was fine. I just thought the teams didn't bring it.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see if anything changes in the next course of, I don't know, next 2-3 episodes.
Well, you know what? Next episode, we return to India for the first time since season 1, which is always interesting, but also uncomfortable and offensive, usually.
Yeah, so...
I mean, it'll be interesting, but we'll see.
I think it'll be an interesting test of a group of very unstable teams.
Yeah, I think so. So yeah, we'll be back with our coverage of the India episode next week, episode 6. But until then, you can email us at amazingracerewind@gmail.com. Follow us on Instagram, amazingracerewind, at amazingracerewind. We have a Buy Me a Coffee page entitled AR Rewind. If you want to hop on there, pop in, leave a message, do a little something on there, perhaps. I don't know.
Yeah. I post... I forgot this past week, so my bad. But I typically post when we are dropping a new episode, so you can follow that page if you want to get email notifications when there's a new episode. And also just leave a comment on one of the posts there if you want to start a conversation with us or your fellow Amazing Race watchers. Comment on the posts and interact.
Jill's doing some blog writing on there, so it's really, really phenomenal stuff going on the Buy Me a Coffee page. So it's, what is it? Buy Me a Coffee / AR Rewind?
AR Rewind, sorry.
RRR.
RRR.
You can please give us a rating. We like that. It helps us.
Andrew loves a good rating.
Yeah. I think we have 12 ratings on Spotify, which I like.
Okay, but how many of those are our friends?
Apple. Yeah, okay, we don't need to talk about that. And
that's it for now.
Okay, bye.
Bye.